not despair. The misery that is now upon us is but the passing of greed, the bitterness of men who fear the way of human progress. The hate of men will pass, and dictators die, and the power they took from the people will return to the people. And so long as men die, liberty will never perish. Don't give yourselves to these unnatural men with machine minds and machine hearts. You are not machines. You are not cattle. You are men. You, the people, have the power to make this life free and beautiful, to make this life a wonderful adventure. Let us use that power. Let us all unite. And we'll rise over love, over hate, through the science skies, as fast becoming our minds, and over fear, and into freedom, into freedom, from which we'll rise.
Energy is ours. These were the words I heard again and again last month when I was in the Faroe Islands. From politicians, from CEOs, and from ordinary people. Energy is ours. And so I'd like to tell you a pity story. The Faroes are a small Nordic island group at 62 degrees north. A population of just over 50,000 people, and yet they have more autonomy than Scotland does. Let that sink in. A population of 50,000 people with more autonomy than Scotland. And guess what? They're thriving. The Faroes have 100% community-owned wind farms. Every profit, every penny goes back into their communities, investing in innovation, in grid resilience and in infrastructure. Their wind farms are small, dispersed and integrated. Their national energy company sees it as their job to keep prices low and affordable. When I was there recently, I asked the CEO how many people in the Faroe Islands are in fuel poverty. And he looked genuinely confused back at me, and he thought it was a trick question. He told me, Hannah Mary, I don't understand. Because here's the thing, fuel poverty doesn't exist in Faroes. Now compare that to my home, the Shetland Islands. We host one of the largest onshore wind farms in the whole of Europe, privately owned, 103 turbines across the spine of Shetland, frequently curtailed, and 25% of our community is in fuel poverty. The very wind that creates profit for Viking Energy is the same wind that leaves too many Shetlanders struggling to heat their homes. And this is a story told many times over Scotland. Something doesn't add up. Something is deeply broken. These are political choices. These are Westminster choices. Successive UK governments choosing to prioritise corporations over communities again and again and again. As we all know, energy is reserved to Westminster. And right now, Scotland has very limited power to build the fair, affordable system that we need, however much we want it, or however much we need it. We have all the energy and none of the power. But it doesn't need to be this way. When it comes to energy, Scotland has won the lottery, not once, but twice. First with oil and gas, and now with renewables. And here's the secret. Unlike oil and gas, wind will not run out. Scotland's energy must be in Scotland's hands. We need to treat energy as a public good, something that drives down bills. We need to back our homegrown supply chain with local content requirements. If we're going to build offshore wind, it must coexist and not compete for space against our native family-owned fishing fleets. We need rural and island communities to feel in control, with industry welcomed on their terms. And most importantly, we need to move away from community benefit to community ownership. All of these changes we need, and all of them begin with self-governance. Now, I'm sure everyone in this room gets it. But if you are one of the many in Scotland who is unsure about self-governance, then let me speak to you directly. I do not underestimate the strength of the uncertainty that you feel. You love Scotland as much as I do. You are as patriotic and as hopeful about our country as I am. But we must ask ourselves honestly, is the United Kingdom many voted to remain part of in 2014, the same United Kingdom that we live in today? We have been dragged out of Europe against our will. The UK has moved further and further to the right. Westminster has delivered a decade of chaos, and the decisions there have plunged thousands of Scots into fuel poverty. Surely we can do better than this. And I know that we can, because Scotland is big enough. Scotland is smart enough, strong enough, energy rich enough, and above all else, brave enough. We have the capabilities. We have the skills. We have the workforce and the resources and the ambition to match any country on this earth. Our people have powered the energy industry for decades, and they will power the next one too. And now we have something extraordinary, a second chance at this energy game. A chance to do what should have been done decades ago. A chance to build a system that is fair and works for Scotland, not against us and not around us. I believe with all of my heart that Scotland's best days are ahead of us and not behind us. But only if we choose them, and only if we choose them together. Now sit back and relax and watch the film. Thank you.
This is a true story of two nations, shaped by the same sea, the same weather, and the same energy beneath the waves, yet led down two very different paths. Scotland and Norway are nations of similar size, rich in natural resources, engineering talent, and energy potential. Both were given a once-in-a-century opportunity. Yet the choices made about how that wealth is managed by Westminster in the UK and via self-government in Norway have led us down very different paths. North Sea oil was discovered in Scotland's waters. Despite promises of prosperity, the Westminster government allowed private companies to control Scotland's oil wealth, directing profits and taxes south of the border. In a report from 1974, economist Gavin McCrone predicted oil wealth could make Scotland one of Europe's richest countries. Westminster governments chose to suppress this information, keeping Scotland's true potential hidden away from the public. Across the North Sea, Norway also discovered oil. They nationalised the resource, created a state-owned oil company, and ensured profits benefited their citizens, not just private firms. When Thatcher came to power, the UK was rich from Scotland's North Sea oil. But rather than save it for the future, her government rolled out tax cuts to the wealthy and privatised public assets. Scotland's potential had been squandered. In the 90s, Norway created an oil fund, investing the profits to fund schools, healthcare, pensions and jobs long after the oil was gone. By the 2000s, Scotland was well on the path of devolution, but decision-making on energy was reserved to Westminster. The windfall from Scotland's oil was frittered away on day-to-day spending. Norway, on the other hand, grew their fund into one of the world's largest, investing billions to support public services and ensure shared prosperity for future generations. Thanks to Scottish Government support for renewables, Scotland generates more green electricity than it uses. However, despite being one of Europe's most energy-rich nations, Scottish families face some of Europe's highest energy bills. Westminster decisions continue to keep prices high and divert profits elsewhere.
In the 1970s, the SNP ran the It's Scotland's Oil campaign. The premise was simple. The vast oil wealth being drawn from Scotland's waters should benefit the people of Scotland. It was a warning that if control over those resources stayed in Westminster's hands, Scotland would miss the chance to build lasting prosperity. Half a century on, that warning has proved true. While Norway used its oil revenues to create the world's largest sovereign wealth fund, investing in public services, renewables and future generations, Westminster squandered Scotland's share, leaving communities without the long-term benefits that energy wealth should have brought. Now, history risks repeating itself. Scotland once again stands at the heart of a new energy revolution, this time in renewables. We generate more clean electricity than we consume, yet pay some of the highest energy bills in Europe. The lesson is clear. When decisions are made in Westminster, Scotland's resources work for others. When decisions are made here in Scotland, they can work for us. With independence, we can lower household energy bills by over a third. We can enshrine communities with a right to up to 20% of ownership of onshore wind projects. And we can create energy savings for businesses of at least one third, increasing competitiveness and making Scotland an even more attractive location for investment. Two nations, one resource, two different choices. Norway's future was built with its own hands, and Scotland's can be too. You just need to vote for it. It's time for a fresh start with lower energy bills. It's time to vote SNP.
Good morning, friends. Thank you, Hannah Mary, for the introduction a few moments ago. Hannah Mary, your part of the world, Shetland, is at the very heart of Scotland's energy story, from the first years of oil and gas that we've just heard about, right up to today, and the beginnings of our second energy opportunity. And what a fantastic film for us to have put together. It tells a story that we all feel in our hearts, a story that will resonate in all corners of our country. Scotland's oil and gas wealth flowed south to fill the coffers of the UK Treasury, leaving Scotland with the economic scraps from the Westminster table. London and the South East prospering, with Scotland, despite being the source of so much of the wealth, treated as little more than an afterthought. We saw it then, and we're seeing it once again today. The oil and gas industry, which has delivered direct revenues of £450 billion to the UK government, now left high and dry by an energy profits levy that is sucking the economic life out of one of our country's most dynamic and important industries, an industry that deserves better given all that it has contributed in the past, but also an industry that deserves better because of the essential part it must play in our transition from carbon-heavy to carbon-free energy generation. And let's be clear, the oil and gas industry is not just the rigs, it is the service vessels, the supply chains, the engineers, the geologists, the designers, the researchers, the office workers, the hotels, cafes, restaurants, a whole ecosystem of economic activity, a network of routes deep in all parts of Scotland, but above all in Aberdeen, the North East and the Northern Isles. Deep roots in our society, but also in our national psyche. The oil and gas industry has been an important part of Scotland's story, a fundamental part of who we are. That's why when I met the Prime Minister on Friday, I made clear the existential nature of the current threat that we face. I left the Prime Minister in no doubt that unless he changes course, what we face is a second wave of 80s-style deindustrialisation, 80s-style economic devastation. Today, Sir Keir Starmer is an even less popular Prime Minister than Liz Truss, and that takes some doing. But if he does not change course on the energy profits levy, he will enter our national story as a second Thatcher, a second destroyer of industry, a second destroyer of communities, and Scotland will not forget. We use the phrase just transition, but as with many such terms, it hides the reality of people whose lives and livelihoods are dependent on us getting the move from oil and gas to renewables correct. Have no doubt, if Scotland is to make the most of our renewables wealth, we need the skills of the people working today in the North Sea, and so we must not abandon them. Fundamentally, that means taking decisions about our energy policy and our energy future as quickly as possible out of the hands of Westminster politicians who ultimately, and this has always been the case and it always will be the case, care less about Scotland than they do about their own backyard. But there is a different path, a different future. As our film today sets out, just over the North Sea, a very different story is being told. Norway, with the full powers of independence, has been able to use its energy resources, its oil and gas wealth, to build an economy and a society that is wealthier and fairer than the United Kingdom. Norway has put in place strong financial foundations and economic underpinning that means each and every Norwegian has a more secure future than people in Scotland. It's a story of wealth and opportunity achieved because Norway's energy was in Norway's hands. But just like oil and renewables-rich Norway, Scotland has been blessed twice. We may have missed out on the full benefit of our oil and gas bonanza, but with our vast, low-cost renewable energy resource, Scotland has the second chance to get it right. A second chance to repair the damage being done right now by a Westminster approach that serves London and the South East, while happily sacrificing Scotland and our North East. You, like me, will have heard people from the islands and the Highlands to Galloway and the South West asking, why more wind farms? Why more pylons? When the energy being generated is doing so little for Scotland as it flows once again down south, and we face sky-high energy costs. We produce energy in surplus, but the folly of UK energy policy even serves to turn the fundamental economics on their head. A surplus of low-cost energy in Scotland should mean, and must mean, not ever higher bills, but low-cost energy for the people of Scotland for good. Friends, we speak of independence as the fresh start that Scotland needs. A fresh start from the chaos of a Westminster system that is fundamentally broken and broken beyond repair. And a fresh start financially, economically. A fresh start because with Scotland's future in Scotland's hands, our nation, our fellow citizens, can finally see the benefit of our vast energy wealth. No more should Scotland's energy and energy wealth simply flow south, because just as it was Scotland's oil, today we say loud and clear, it's Scotland's energy. And this time, let us say this so that Westminster can be in no doubt. The full benefit of our energy wealth must be felt by the communities who have wind farms in their backyard, by households struggling to pay their bills, by businesses the length and breadth of our country with the potential to prosper and to grow. In short, the full benefit of Scotland's energy wealth must be felt by the people of Scotland. And that is why today we set out the opportunity that exists for Scotland if we choose independence. Independence just like Norway. And like Norway, using our energy wealth to deliver a true transformation of our society and our economy. We know from analysis produced for Ofgem that a different policy approach would enable Scotland to have the lowest wholesale electricity prices in Western Europe. As we set out in the paper published today, by selling that low-cost electricity into other markets at a profit, by increasing storage capacity, including pump hydro storage, to end the folly of generators being paid not to produce electricity, And by removing unnecessary costs like the UK's nuclear levy, we can deliver big benefits here in Scotland. That includes being able to lower household electricity bills by over 1/3, a big saving for families across Scotland, offering the real hope that cost of living pressures will finally begin to ease. The opportunity to give communities a real stake and a share in the profits from the wind farms being built in their area. That will become a requirement of onshore developers to do so. And the opportunity to deliver a crucial competitive advantage for Scottish industry, for Scottish companies, and deliver savings for our hospitals and schools with their electricity costs cut by at least 1/3 too. Think what that will mean for our National Health Service. Less money spent on energy bills means more money to spend on doctors and nurses, on more operations and appointments. And have no doubt, a policy of low energy costs for Scottish businesses can be as transformational for our country and its prospects as the policy of low corporation tax was for Ireland. With a commitment to delivering low energy costs as the backdrop of our national economic strategy, we can also make every Scottish business more competitive than it is today, creating new jobs, better paid jobs, opening up new opportunities for investment, innovation and growth. We can attract new business to our shores. We can become one of the most attractive locations on the planet for the high-tech, energy-intensive industries of the future, enabling us to turbocharge our nation's economic prospects. Friends, an energy-rich Scotland must mean energy-rich Scots. We know what is possible. We can see it just across the North Sea in Norway. Let's not miss this second opportunity to transform our nation. Let's not let Westminster take the decisions and also take Scotland's wealth, because it is Scotland's energy, it is Scotland's opportunity. And I say to each and every person in this country, it is your energy and your opportunity too. We will be better off with independence, better off with Scotland's future and Scotland's energy in Scotland's hands. That is the fresh start that only independence offers. It's the fresh start our nation can choose in May next year, and it can do so only by voting for the SNP. Thank you very much. Thank you all very much. We're now going to take some questions from broadcasters, and then I'll go on to do some more press work later on. But the first question is from BBC Scotland, Jamie McIver. Jamie.
Good morning, First Minister. So you're talking again about independence again today, but can you deliver independence? What do you do if the Prime Minister simply says no to another independence referendum, even if the SNP or pro-independence parties win a majority in May? What is that plan?
Fundamentally, Jamie, this is a question of democracy and democratic choice. The people of Scotland have the right to determine their own future. Indeed, that was a universally accepted proposition and comment in the run-up to the referendum in 2014. It was accepted after the SNP won a majority in 2011 that there had to be a referendum on independence to allow the people of Scotland to decide. Now, I think currently we have a pro-independence majority in the Scottish Parliament. That should be enough, in my view, for us to have a referendum on independence, but that has been resisted by the UK government. So the lesson I take from that is that we've got to demonstrate emphatic support for the proposition of independence, and we do so by electing a majority of SNP MSPs at the election in May. And fundamentally, the people of Scotland take into their own hands the question of Scotland's future, just as I seek to say to the people of Scotland, one of the opportunities of independence today is to take our energy future into our own hands and determine the best course of action that we take as a consequence. Can I now come to Amanda Akas of Sky? Amanda?
Hello, Amanda Akas, Sky News. We're here in the asylum hotel capital of the UK. How confident are you that your welcoming position towards refugees will hold amid growing numbers of protests about this issue? And how much of a challenge is the growing popularity of reform to you? And if I may, when is the child grooming gang review going to report back? And do you regret not just launching a full inquiry at the start?
Well, on the issues in child grooming, we set out to Parliament the steps that we're taking, which are about gathering the evidence to determine whether we should move on to undertaking an inquiry, and we've got a huge amount of independent scrutiny in place from His Majesty's Inspector of Constabulary, from Healthcare Improvement Scotland, from the Care Inspectorate as well. So there's a variety of independent scrutiny able to be undertaken. I welcome the appointment of Professor Alexis Jay to lead the national group that looks at all of these questions. So that work is underway, and I think is the right course of action for us to take. In relation to the questions of asylum, I take the very firm view that this country has always been a welcoming country. We should maintain that. It is part of who we are, and we should reflect that in the way in which we take forward our approach and our support for people who seek asylum in our own country. I think the protests that are taking place at the accommodation for asylum seekers are appalling. I think some of the language that is... there's language on these banners that I just find absolutely wholly and totally contemptible and hostile. So I have no truck with those protests, and I think it's important that very clear and emphatic political leadership is given that Scotland will not follow that hostile approach to migration. Indeed, we actually need people to come to Scotland to boost our working age population because of some of the challenges that we face. So that's where I stand. I'm not going to change my mind. I think it's the important stance of principle that reflects the people I lead in this country. And of course there are people that are supporting reform, and I will challenge reform. I will go up against reform and what they say. I will stand firm in exercising that political leadership, and I'm quite sure I speak for the majority of people in Scotland in the process. Thank you, Amanda. Can we now go to Rachel Keenan of PA?
Good morning. Hi, I'm over here.
Sure.
So looking forward to the World Cup next year. Are you considering allowing late opening of pubs in Scotland around the World Cup, as Scotland games are either likely to kick off at 11 p.m. or 2 a.m?
Well, they're certainly going to be late in the day, the Scotland games, but I'm absolutely delighted that we've got to the World Cup and looking forward to it enormously. I look forward to being First Minister when Scotland's in the World Cup, as well as being the First Minister when Scotland got to the World Cup. Obviously, the issues about opening hours for pubs and venues and all the rest of it are matters for local authorities, but we'll be working very closely with local authorities to make sure that Scotland can enjoy to the full the wonderful experience of being in the World Cup and its many stages, if I can put it that way. So these are issues. Obviously, the powers rest with local authorities, but we will work in collaborative with local authorities to take these issues forward. Okay, can I come to Molly Tullett of Bauer? Molly.
Hello. We've heard a lot about independence in the last 10 years. We've heard a lot more about it today. Every time we say this is the time for independence, but I'm curious, what makes this time different?
Well, I think you talk about, we've heard a lot about independence in the last 10 years, and I suppose what's different about now is that people in Scotland have had the opportunity to see what's happened in the United Kingdom since the referendum in 2014, when Scotland chose to remain part of the United Kingdom. It's one of the key points that Hannah Mary made in her introductory remarks. People can now see what's happened. And we can see that the promises that were made to us in 2014 about what the United Kingdom would continue to represent have disappeared. So we were told if we voted no, we'd have a guaranteed place in the European Union. We're out of the European Union. We were told that we'd have low food prices and low energy prices, and they've both gone through the roof. And we've seen the diminution of economic opportunity for Scotland as a consequence of the sky-high inflation that's been part of the economic management of the United Kingdom. So for all those reasons, I think people are reflecting on the fact that what was promised in 2014 has not materialised. And that's why I think it's so important that Scotland takes this opportunity to proceed to become an independent country, because the arguments I've mapped out to you today, which are in our film and which will be part of this whole campaign that I'm setting out today, and which will be an integral part of our message in the run-up to the election in May, is this. We have an opportunity, a second opportunity, to benefit from the huge natural energy wealth of our country. And we can see very vividly that what that will look like if it remains controlled by Westminster. We will have sky-high energy bills. Our economy will be put at an economic disadvantage because of energy prices. And we can take a different path. We can take a path which takes Scotland's energy future into Scotland's hands, and we take the decisions that are right for us as a consequence. So that is why I think this is the moment. And I simply put to the people of Scotland the importance of recognising in the election in May that there is a choice. Either the election of the SNP and a majority of SNP MSPs who can take forward Scotland's case for independence, or being essentially at the mercy of decisions taken by Westminster, which on any objective analysis today is demonstrating a very poor outcome for Scotland. So that's why it's relevant for today. And it's also crucial for some of the issues of wider domestic policy making, because if you take one of the examples I cited there about energy costs just don't apply to households, and they don't just apply to businesses. They apply to public organisations as well. So hospitals and public authorities are having to pay very high fuel bills. If those can be reduced, then we have more money at our disposal to invest in the public outcomes and public services that we all want to see thrive. And of course, we're making progress on all of these different areas. So that's why at this moment, Molly. Thank you. Gina Davison from Global.
Hi, First Minister. A number of years ago, Nicola Sturgeon said that the SNP would launch a state-owned energy company to bring people's bills down. That didn't happen. We saw Labour last year pledge £300 off people's electricity, gas bills. That hasn't happened. Why should anybody trust anything a politician says to them about cutting their fuel bills, particularly when you're basing it on something as disruptive to maybe investment in the energy sector as independence?
Well, I think on the question of investment, Gina, we've got an indisputable energy opportunity in Scotland, and it's a product of our natural environment and our natural geography. So that's not going to go away. That's not going to move somewhere else. It's not going to be relocated to some other place. It's here. And there is an investment opportunity to be taken forward, but an investment opportunity that can either lead to benefits for the people of Scotland or benefits for the UK Treasury. And I'm simply saying to people in Scotland, here is an opportunity for us to ensure that the benefits of Scotland's energy wealth are used and deployed to benefit the people of Scotland, rather than to make the mistake, which I think happened post-1970s, of the energy wealth of Scotland in oil and gas being used to benefit the UK Treasury, and Scotland be left as an afterthought. So the opportunity is there for people in Scotland, and it's up to people in Scotland to decide whether they wish to pursue that opportunity. Now, in terms of the substance of how can we reduce those energy costs. I've mapped out in what I've said today the different elements that play into that, whether that's about the removal of the nuclear levy, which is going to be increasing household bills in this country, or whether that's the constraint payments that are put in place because we don't have adequate storage in place, or the various other measures that we can take to strengthen our opportunity. That all is available to people in Scotland if we have control. And that's what it all comes down to. And that's why the argument is compelling for people in Scotland. Can I come to Susanna Blair now from EFE?
First Minister, if the SNP wins in May, what will be the timeline for the next step towards independence?
Well, obviously, if we win the election in May with an overall majority, I will be taking forward the steps to make sure that Scotland is able to determine her own future, and to do that with urgency and with impetus, because Scotland's democratic wishes must be respected, and that's precisely what will happen if the people of Scotland elect a majority of SNP MSPs in May, just as it happened in 2011. And the democratic arguments in favour of making sure that that is the case, of guaranteeing the people of Scotland the right to determine their own future, are indisputable arguments that will be at the heart of the approach we take as a government. Now, the last broadcasting question is from Catherine Nutt of Broadcasting Scotland.
Hi.
Catherine?
Hiya, over here. Over here, sorry.
So, yeah, right.
Hiya. We've talked a lot about the promises that we're making whenever you get in, or if you get in. What would be the first policies you'd put in place if Scotland went independent?
Oh, well, there's a variety of measures that we would take forward, but making sure that the energy wealth of Scotland is used to benefit the people of Scotland is a fundamental underpinning of our economy, because that affects households, it affects businesses, and it affects public sector organisations. And if you look at the challenges that we face as a country today about the cost of living, about the sustainability of the public finances, but all of these different questions, so much of it is anchored on the cost of energy. It's a fundamental factor in the prosperity and the prospects of our economy. So what I want to make sure is that we use our powers wisely and effectively to create a new future for the people of Scotland, and getting on with getting Scotland's energy into Scotland's hands is right at the heart of that, because that then enables us to take forward a whole range of other measures that can support individuals in our society. We live in a country where we have high levels of fuel poverty. High levels of fuel poverty will obviously drive the levels of child poverty that exist within our society, and you know from the priorities of my government, we are absolutely focused on doing everything within our existing powers to eradicate child poverty. We're making significant progress in that endeavour. We've now got lower child poverty in Scotland than the rest of the UK, a 9% gap in those levels. We've got a falling level of child poverty, and child poverty at a 30-year low in Scotland today. I want to continue. I will do everything I can as the First Minister of the Scottish Government, operating within my devolved responsibilities, to lower that level of child poverty. But a significant contributory factor would be if we could reduce fuel poverty and ensure that families are better supported, and that opportunity only opens up with independence. Right, that's the broadcasting questions. Thank you all, and it's great to have the opportunity to set out this important thinking which will underpin our election campaign of the realisation of Scotland's opportunity. I look forward to sharing this message more widely around the country. I'm really grateful to you for coming along this morning. Thank you, and I look forward to sharing this message with you and the people of Scotland in the months to come. Thank you very much.